Dana Knowles, a familiar face. Welcome back to 9 News. 10 years since you have been gone.
10 years.
A lot of longtime viewers will remember you covered education here, among other things, and then you stepped away to go into the brave world of motherhood, and you were writing. I'm tempted to ask you, how have you been? But I know the answer already, and it is good and bad and now great. The latest story you're telling is your own.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 10 years since I've been here. We have 3 kids. I have a 10-year-old daughter. We have 7-year-old twins, or she'll be 10 next month. And yeah, it's been a wild, wild ride, definitely.
You have gone public here recently with your struggle with addiction.
Yes.
How did it start? And where was your life at that moment? Because I think so many people see, well, it spirals out of control.
Right. Right. For me, there's sort of a pattern of the way somebody who is in addiction thinks, and that thinking pattern starts before you get addicted to the chemical. And for me, I was molested when I was 5, and that sort of switched something off in my brain. I never really developed a sense of individuality. I was always sort of looking on the outside to make myself happy on the inside. And so I would always compare myself to other people. And as I got older, I would set goals with the job, getting married, having kids, like looking for these things to fulfill myself and make me happy. And ultimately, that didn't necessarily happen. And so with the addiction, what happened with that was I had surgery for a labral tear, and I was prescribed a lot of opiates. And basically, once I started taking those opiates, they did a lot more than alleviate the pain. I discovered that I loved that feeling. And all the feelings of isolation and loneliness that I used to have would go away when I would take the medication. And so that's kind of in a nutshell.
People think about a high, but you've described it as almost, you were super mom, you were productive, you felt like you had the energy to do whatever you want to do, which are all things that we associate with positive outcomes, not negative outcomes.
Right. Right. Yes, I think for most people, opiates make you feel drowsy. For me, they gave me a lot of energy and a sense of euphoria. And, you know, being a stay-at-home mom, there's a lot of pressure to do all this stuff, to be perfect. I want my children to be healthy. I want to be healthy. So I'm trying to, you know, cook dinners, participate in school stuff, and do everything that I possibly need to do. And we entertained a lot for friends on the weekends. And so I think on some level, you know, the medication helped, but then it doesn't help after a while. And you start to need to take it to feel normal. And then you go into a withdrawal and you realize, okay, this is definitely a problem. And, you know, at the time I didn't know what to do about it. And so it just sort of continued for a few years.
You got treatment.
Yes.
And then found that you relapsed. It was alcohol that opened the door back up.
Yes.
And then came the painkillers again.
Yes.
What was the tipping point that is the difference that ensured that you're here today talking to me about this?
I think the tipping point was I realized after I got into treatment the first time, I had maybe 8 months of sobriety, and they tell you you can't do anything that's going to alter your mind anymore unless it's just caffeine. But I saw everyone else drinking, and I kept thinking, well, you know, alcohol wasn't really my problem before. And I finally was just like, you know what, I'm gonna just see if I can drink socially. And I was fine for about a month and a half, and then alcohol does hit the same part of your brain, and when I would feel the alcohol, I relapsed because I started to get those cravings all over again. So, yeah.
Why have you decided that this is something that you want to share with people? For so many folks, even after they've largely beaten it back, there's that sense of shame and there's the stigma about it, and they decide this can be a private thing, my friends and family. Why public?
Just like you said, for me, it helps me let go of a lot of the shame. And it helps me, it's very cathartic. I'm doing it really for selfish reasons, and that's to help myself let go of the shame. I don't want to hold on to it anymore because there's a ton of shame associated with addiction. And I also kind of want to put a normal face on it to get rid of some of the stigma. I think a lot of people still assume that, you know, addicts or alcoholics look a certain way, and we know these days these statistics are startling with how many people are dying of overdoses from opiates. And I'm kind of at a point where I feel like I can do something to help myself and other people, even if it's just a little bit. If I can get the message out there and tell people it's really, really hard to do this work, but if you do it, it's going to be so much better for you. So
I want to ask you directly, to the people who saw you around town and knew you when you were fighting addiction, what Dana Knowles did they see publicly during that time?
I made sure they saw a Dana Knowles who was together. You know, I hid it for a long time. I didn't want people to know. It made me feel horrible. I felt like an awful person, and I did not know how to get out of that. And so you sort of kick into your survival mode, and that was, you know, when I'm out of the house and when I'm around other people who don't know me or know what's going on, and very few people did, by the way, I would present a certain face to them. And that's, you know, that's what I had to do. And that takes a lot of effort. That's exhausting as well. So that's also part of the reason why I'm doing this, is because some people knew, some people didn't, and I just feel like now everybody knows, there's no question, and they also know that I'm moving forward in my life to stay healthy, to take care of my family, and be there for them and myself in the most healthy way that I know.
I want to ask you about that, your family. You managed to not only repair your mind and your body, but you repaired some of the rifts in your family. Stayed married, got help for your kids. How did that happen?
We found out about the program for our kids when I was in treatment. It's the Betty Ford Center for Kids, and it's like a 5-day seminar where kids of alcoholics and addicts, whether or not they're in recovery, kids go to learn about the disease from a kid perspective. They learn that it's not their fault. They learn that it's not good to hide. They learn that they need to be honest, and they learn that they need to express themselves and feel comfortable expressing themselves so that they don't hold on to stuff. And there's a lot more to it than that, but we just felt like we have to do this for our kids. It's so important. And I know, having met a lot of other people in recovery, that when children are exposed to this kind of thing, it doesn't necessarily create a healthy adulthood for them. So we're trying to do everything we can to ensure that they can be healthy.
Before we got started here, we were having a conversation with our mutual friend Kim Christensen, who was talking about the immense pressure specifically for mothers.
Yes.
That this, what's the car company slogan? The relentless pursuit of perfection?
Right.
That's like the American slogan now.
Absolutely, yeah.
You feel like that contributed to what you were dealing with?
A lot of it, absolutely, absolutely. And sort of this pressure to be the perfect mom. I was talking to a friend about this the other day. You're sort of, as a mom, expected to be engaged and happy and signing up for things at school. And I think it's good to participate, but also find what's comfortable for you, you know, and it's okay to make mistakes. It was not okay before for me to make a mistake. If I did, I tore myself up about it and I felt guilty. Yesterday, I forgot to pack my son's lunch and they had a field trip and he was really upset. They were able to provide a lunch for him, but it was a bad day for him. I felt bad, but I talked to him about it and then I was able to let it go. And it's just, there's so much pressure to have perfect kids, all these activities. You've got to make sure that they never eat an ounce of sugar. You know, it's so much. And I've had to let go of a lot of that so that I can, you know, work hard and be healthy for myself. And I know, the thing is that your kids are going to be okay. If they have a donut or a muffin every once in a while, even more than every once in a while, they're going to be fine. So, yeah.
Can I ask you a question about the TV news business?
Yeah.
I'm curious whether you miss it, because I saw you say after you left the business that not only had the pressure started to wear you down, the daily grind, but you also didn't like the cynicism that it had brought out in you, the day-to-day negativity and that kind of thing.
A little bit, yeah.
Do you miss it?
The news?
The news.
I do. I miss the teamwork. My favorite part was working with photographers and producers, putting together a story, brainstorming. I would write the story, and I'd usually kind of have the photographer look over it with me afterwards, and we'd make sure we have video to match up everything. I loved being in the field with the photographer, especially with one that I'd worked with for a long time. You develop kind of this synergy. They know what they need to get because they know you, and so I miss that part, but I don't miss the multiple deadlines a day. That did start to get to me, but there are definitely aspects that I do miss for sure. And being around grown-ups. Being around people who are over the age of 10.
Yeah.
You know.
That too has its pluses and minuses, I suppose.
Yes.
Thank you for coming in. It's great to see you. I know a lot of folks are going to be really excited to see you after a decade away. And thank you for having the courage to share your story.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.